I don't know what to say. He's a Russian agent, and so is JD. Also, I have to say this just really quickly. JD Vance is a little bitch.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Blue Sedition. I caught you with your mouthful. We just hit start and this guy's got his mouth full of something. What was I saying? The Blue Sedition podcast. That's us. I'm Nate Brady. Who are you?
I'm Mike Smith, and this is by far the worst opening we've ever had. Good job, us.
We don't plan this.
We're going to do it live.
I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna do that over. I don't care.
I wouldn't. I think people appreciate how genuine we are.
Yeah. Well, I got some genuinely crappy stuff to go over today.
Yeah, I'm expecting it.
Yeah. I mean,
let's go. Ready.
Listen, guys, it's not going to be good news. It's not going to be good news for a long time. Unless we can report some deaths in the what do we got today? So we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about tariffs today. I want to talk about the horrendous Zelenskyy meeting today. I want to talk about the $250 bill, which I think is going to be a fantastic bill. We got some things to talk about. Why don't we lead with I guess the stuff that's happening today that's causing some pain to those on Wall Street. It being March 4th, some tariffs have kicked in today.
Yeah. New tariffs.
Or
the same tariffs, but they've updated the amount being collected.
New tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and increased tariffs on China.
Right.
So today, Trump imposed a 25% tariff on almost all imports from Canada and Mexico, and then an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports, which raises their total to 20%. And of course, he's once again trying to justify these tariffs as a measure to combat fentanyl trafficking, which,
was that what he was doing originally? I thought he was going to try and balance the budget. What are we doing here?
Well,
what are we doing?
It's whatever he decides at the moment. But yeah, what he said most consistently, if he's ever consistent, is that these tariffs are almost retaliatory to get the Mexican and Canadian governments to respond to the flow of fentanyl that is coming into the United States. And we've talked about this quite a few times on the podcast, that a lot of the fentanyl, most of the fentanyl studies have shown that had make its way into the United States are actually coming through legal pathways into the United States. So making it through the border, coming in from American citizens that have the ability to cross the border. These are not like people who are trying to get into the country, whether they're fleeing gang violence or looking for a better life. These aren't the people like crossing, rivers and dangerous areas with fentanyl. That's not what's going on.
I think that's a really important distinction. So there's a couple of things that you talked about there that I just really want to press on a bit. So imposing tariffs, which are due at the time of goods crossing the border into the United States from foreign countries, in order to suppress fentanyl, that's not real. That's not a real thing.
It's not. I mean,
we've actually seen evidence of that. That's not a real thing. Like goods and services, you're not buying, a pallet of t-shirts or whatever, and then trying to sell them, at your Forever 21 or whatever you're importing from Canada. Like that's not, and it doesn't come with your fentanyl that way. That's just not a thing. Like you're saying, fentanyl comes through the border by people.
Right.
Right. they're driving, they're with their family or whatever, and everybody's got a little baggie on them because it doesn't actually take up a ton of space and it's very hard to detect. And they go back and forth across the border several times,
Right.
and they seem legitimate. It seems
Yeah.
like they're taking a family vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
Come back, they distribute that. That's how fentanyl gets into the United States. So the tariffs aren't going to stop that. They're not even going to affect that at all.
No, but I'll tell you, in a time where, there has been persistent inflation in the United States, what do you think this is going to do? Will this make inflation better? Will this
Well,
lower the cost of goods?
no, it's not
No,
going to do that.
no. What is this going to
No,
do?
I'm not gonna dive into it too much. We spent an entire episode talking about the ramifications of imposing tariffs in this way, but basically it's going to raise prices for Americans across the board,
Right.
imported or otherwise.
Right.
Because whether you like to acknowledge it or not, a lot of the things that are having tariffs imposed against them are things like raw materials coming from other countries.
Exactly.
So for instance, Coca-Cola is manufactured in Atlanta, Georgia. Like that,
Right.
we take that for granted.
Right.
But all that aluminum for their canning process comes from China. That aluminum now has a 25% tariff, 20% tariff against it in importing. Who's going to foot that bill, Nate? Do you think your Cokes are going to go up, a quarter or a dollar or whatever?
Well, certainly
Maybe.
not mine. I don't drink that shit. But yes,
Well,
sorry to anyone who drinks the Coke, and you already paid, what is that, $5 a can for whatever the
I've got the
La
LaCroix, yeah.
La Croix is that you're drinking here. First it's important to understand that Mexico, China, and Canada are our biggest trading partners, right? I mean, by miles. Okay, so the tariffs on these three countries specifically is going to impact 90% of consumer goods.
Right.
And like you said, the raw materials will affect a number of other things. And
agriculture too. You have to remember that we get a lot of agriculture imported from both Mexico and Canada because of their close proximity. And they can grow things that we can't and vice versa, but they're going to also have their own tariffs on that. So we're paying more, they are paying more. It's a lose-lose situation.
It's a lose-lose.
If you are a person who buys things.
It's a lose-lose situation where I'm going to talk in a second about retaliations that are already happening from Canada. But one of the things, the automobile industry, for instance, came out and said, we're going to be affected the most. And they said that it has a potential increase for new vehicles, for instance, of around $12,000 if these tariffs remain in effect.
Well, I hope nobody needs a new car anytime soon, because as we know, wages aren't going up, and
I hope nobody needs a new
prices
car.
will be.
I hope nobody needs medicine. I hope nobody needs electronics. I mean, this is going to affect everything across the board.
I think that I'm most worried about the fresh produce thing. I think that there was a period of time leading up to this most recent election where people were absolutely horrified about, and some of it was disingenuous, I think, but I think that there are a lot of like you and me, working class folk who were just seeing their grocery bill go up from, $100, $200 to twice as much in the span of a month or two. And it was price gouging mainly, but this time it's imposed by the government. And
I mean,
I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't know how this administration is going to weather that storm, because the people are going to be pissed off when they see their grocery bills for the next couple of months.
My grocery bill is insane. And I think, I am like a value shopper. Like, I don't care about, I don't go to like the big grocery markets or whatever. I go to a place called Grocery Outlet. I'm always looking for deals. I eat once a day. Okay.
And you buy bulk and you freeze everything for as long as you
I do crazy stuff like that. And my grocery bill is so insane that I don't understand how other people deal with it. Like, I don't understand. Like, so I know that credit card debt is rising across the country, especially because of groceries, because people are now using credit cards have been for a while, but more so now than ever, are now using credit cards for essential items like
Right.
food,
Right.
So
Yeah, and then and treating it like making the minimum payment and things like that. Like a lot of the stuff we had for a long time, you used to see like college kids getting in trouble with, and like
right.
young adults, like
Yes.
18 to 30ish in that range. They would pay off, they'd have $1,000 credit card bill, and they'd pay off the minimum amount of $48 because that's what they could afford. And then before you know it, they're our age, you're in your 40s, and you're like, wow, I've got several $100,000 of debt to this
By the
credit
way,
card company.
that used to be me. I'll be honest. I was very bad in my early 20s with credit cards and my finances. I screwed up really bad, and I had, for somebody, I was only making, I was a general manager of a restaurant, and I was only making like 35,000 a year, and I had maybe $80,000 in credit card debt at the time. And I had really messed up.
That's wild.
And I got very lucky to have fixed it, but I got caught in exactly what you said, right?
Yeah.
I had one credit card. Okay, it got maxed out. I can only make the minimum payment on it. Now I need another credit card to buy these things. Before you know it, I have 5 credit cards. They all, are maxed out. I'm making the minimum payment on it just so that it doesn't, hit my credit report in a really negative way. And before you know it, it spirals completely out of control.
And at the end of the day, you're just trying to get groceries for your family.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I have to eat food. I
mean, and that was at a time when I was paying $150 a week for rent, and groceries were cheap.
Yeah.
And but comparatively, I was only making $35K a year. Now you look at it though, and still the average household income, we're talking about multifamily income, is somewhere around $75,000 a year. And people are expected now, you're paying for a family of 4, $400 a week just for groceries. That's like $1,600 to $2,000 a month on groceries.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
you pay
insane.
less on a car payment, right?
Yeah.
You can lease a car for less than that.
Way less. You lease 4 brand new cars for your family for less than. Well, right now you can. I don't know about soon.
Yeah.
So
next month or two.
It's really, I always think about how I am, and this isn't a humble brag by any means, but I'm in a decently well-off situation myself right now, and I find that we are almost on the verge of really struggling. Like if I miss one thing, things could go south, right? I don't know how other families are even surviving right now.
I think that a lot of families, are surviving right now, but also I think that there's a huge swath, and I've said this in every episode of America, who is just so sick to death of politics that they just don't pay any attention to it. And so they hear tariffs and they just go, I don't know what that is. I don't care. And they just tune out. But then in a week, I think literally in like a week or two, you're going to have people screaming, people who don't normally get up in arms about such things. They're going to be screaming about the high prices of groceries and gasoline and you name it.
And this wasn't even on our agenda before I get to this story about Ontario and the retaliatory tariffs. But one thing that we saw, I don't even think it's on our list of things to talk about today, is that for the first time in 80 years, the Social Security Administration is saying that they're potentially going to miss some payments to senior citizens that are relying on that money to live, literally for essential items. So now put all of that together. Tariffs, increased prices at the grocery store and on medications, and now senior citizens who are living Social Security check to Social Security check, potentially going to be missing payments. Holy crap, man. I mean, this is devastating.
Yeah, it seems like a strategic attempt to undermine every piece of federal system that we have. It really, I think their end game is to just try and make the federal government look as incompetent as possible.
Yeah.
So that they can come back and rally on, we don't need a federal government because look how terrible it is, when they made it that way.
And listen, I have been we both have extremely critical of the Biden administration for all of the things that we thought they could have done that they did not do to help the working class and help people in need. But one thing that they did, which they were so poor at communicating, that's a whole other episode about how poor of a communicator Joe Biden was as the leader of the Democratic Party. But one of the things they did do was really help the economy out of what was a global hit because of the pandemic. I mean,
Right.
they really helped level us off and trend us in a right direction. The problem is that people were still struggling so much that they still were looking for a change, not the status quo, and that
Right.
steady increase and just slowly getting better just wasn't enough for them. But now we're gonna completely drop off and go back in the other direction.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I think you're right. I think that the Biden administration did a lot at the macro level, the federal
Yeah,
level, where you have the big picture thing, where they would tout statistics about the economy being good, job creation being up, unemployment being down, some wages, not all wages, some wages were up, like across the board. Like these are really good metrics. But then they're they didn't say it, they didn't phrase it very well. Like you're saying, Biden was so old at that point, he couldn't go out and championing those those effects rather. And then the second thing is that, and we talked about this during the election cycles as well, it's really hard when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're just trying to get enough food on the table for your family to hear how great the economy is and how
yes,
great things are
yes,
going. And you're like, I'm at the end of my rope here.
right,
Like, what are you fucking talking about?
right, yeah,
And so I think, I obviously we saw people vote on that. I think that there was a lot of independence, just like, stop telling me lies. Like,
yeah,
stop telling me how great things
yeah,
are.
yeah. And so yeah, I think the messaging, oh man, we talk about this all the time. The messaging with the Democratic Party was very, very poor. I listened to a great interview yesterday with Governor Healy of Massachusetts. She's Democratic
Yeah.
governor of Massachusetts, where she basically said the Democratic brand is just awful right now. They don't understand what the working class is dealing with. They don't know how to speak to the working class anymore. We have to change the entire brand of the Democratic Party. Doesn't matter how good you're doing or what good you're doing, if the perception is that you're either not doing those things or you're not doing enough for
Right.
for the people.
I think that the Democrat Party, especially like 90s on, we'll say, has really sort of branded itself as this and we get scapegoated with this sort of, or like straw man attacked with this sort of thing, but it's like the party of the intellectuals, like
Yeah,
these college
yeah,
educated, well-to-do, et cetera, et cetera. And I think at some point the Democratic Party internalized that, and they're like, we are the party of the well-to-do, well-educated people who know better, right?
it's the
And
shut up, I'm talking kind of
yeah,
attitude. You
yeah,
know,
and instead of making the bigger tent, they like push out the people who are like, I want to vote for you, but you're not helping me.
I,
And then they're like, well, you're the reason that we have Donald Trump. Well, no, you're the reason we have Donald Trump.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I'm saying that a lot. It's very hard for me to blame. Well, okay, I want to blame all Trump voters, right? And I
Right.
certainly blame the racists and the misogynists and the people that want
Of
to hurt
course.
other people. But it's
Of course.
difficult for me to just blame working class people who don't really understand what's going on and just they're begging for anybody, please anybody to help. They're literally willing to make a deal with the devil if it means it
Yeah.
will save their family from what they're
No,
dealing with right now.
I think you're completely right. And I think it's sort of, we see it a lot because we're in our field, obviously, we do a lot of tech stuff. We work with a lot of people who are college educated and who are pretty well off, just generally. And you get a real sense from them. They don't have a strong connection with anybody who's ever had to like live paycheck to paycheck, or they didn't know
Sleep in
where their
their
next meal was
car.
coming
Yeah,
from. And yeah,
exactly.
they never slept in the
Yeah,
car. Exactly.
yeah.
And so you're like, it's not their fault, but they just can't conceive of a person living this way. And so they don't think that those problems are real. I think the flip side's
Man,
true, obviously, but like just like the inability for people to empathize with people they've never met or gone through things that they've never gone through. I just don't understand how both parties have become this way.
it's the whole I don't want to give tax breaks or college refunds, loan refunds, because I had to go and pay for it myself. I mean, that's literally insane. I had my paycheck garnished to finish my student loans, okay? And I still wanted other people to have it better. I just don't understand, because part of it is that the leaders, these grifters in the opposition, will tell them that they're going to pay for it. Oh, now you have to pay for it, which just, it really isn't true. Okay. I mean, we could take care of all of those people without raising taxes on the working class.
So that's my point, though. Like, it's the messaging, right? Because on the right, the messaging is they're going to tax you, a person who's not going to benefit from any of these things, for these things. And on the left, the messaging is what? like, okay, Bernie, we understood Bernie.
Right.
He said, I think healthcare is a right for all. In America, we can afford it. We're going to tax everybody.
Right.
Everybody has healthcare. Everybody needs healthcare. That's an easy one to understand. Like the student loan thing, I sort of don't even understand the argument there either. But like the messaging wasn't, we're going to tax everybody to pay for these college education so that you can go to college. It's not like you were making the same argument as like elementary school or high school, right? Like what was the messaging there?
So I have to go to Bernie. We're taking a little road trip right now. Okay, I want to play this 1 minute clip because of something just ridiculous that James Carville said, who everybody knows is one of the biggest, Dem strategists out there. He's been involved in several campaigns, Clinton, Obama, etc. Let's listen to this.
James Carville wrote this, quote, "Roll over and play dead. Allow the Republicans to crumble beneath their own weight and make the American people miss us." Senator, what say you? Do you think that's a good idea?
No, I don't. In fact, the problem is the Democrats have been playing dead for too many years. 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. We have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country. Millions of seniors are struggling to heat their homes and put food on the table. I don't think you play dead. I think you stand up for the working class of this country and make the point that right now the Trump administration is clearly an administration designed to represent the interests of the Musks of the world. 13 of the people that he nominated to head agencies are billionaires.
James Carville wrote this.
Simple messaging. It's so painful that no other Democrat really will come out and just say these things. Like he puts it so well. He says the same thing that we're saying. It's like you're not connecting with average voters who are living paycheck to paycheck, who need to be supported in these ways.
What is it, Mike?
And you have the billionaire class trying to rule everything, and we should be against that too.
What is it about the Democratic Party that had us fighting with each other about Bernie Sanders? I mean, we still have people that will drop into our replies if we play. Who can argue with what Bernie Sanders just said there? You can't. I mean, if you're arguing with that.
Here's the thing. You and I have spoken to a lot of people over the years, probably since 2012 also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
Little before that, but just talking with people, all walks of life, Republican, Libertarian, Democrat, liberal, socialist, whatever. And individually, I think that I think that it's plain to say, like, they all agreed with Bernie Sanders' messaging. They said that, this is the person who should be leading the country. This is a man who understands the plight of working people and what problems need solving. And so then why did we all fight with each other about this man across the board? I don't have a good answer for you.
I mean, I do have a good answer. I mean, the answer is pretty obvious. And people hate to hear it and they will get so mad at it. But people in power, people that held the purse strings for the Democratic Party, they did not want this type of person leading the Democratic Party because it would take their power away from them.
Sure.
I mean, it's as simple as that. And so the messaging that they control the media. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy. I mean, I am not the look at Hillary's emails, but look at one of Hillary's emails, which was the instruction to her media friends to elevate Donald Trump, to Pied Piper Donald Trump in the 2015
Right.
Republican primaries, to make sure that they put Donald Trump's face all over CNN, all over every news network. They aired his rallies in its entirety. You had Bernie Sanders speaking, literally, this message hasn't changed in the 15 years that I've at least been aware of Bernie Sanders, right? It has been the same stump speech. It has been the same message to the working class. CNN would not air 5 minutes of this. Instead, they would air Trump, his full speech in its entirety. And I got to give some credit to the Dems. They thought that by doing that, people would see how ridiculous Donald Trump is and wouldn't vote for him. And instead, something else happened. I mean, the Pied Piper strategy worked, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and hate to give credit to Donald Trump, obviously, but he does speak to the working class. He's lying to them, but he speaks to their needs. He's pandering, but it's effective.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before.
Let's
the
say
Dems should just lie more.
Yeah, let's say as just a thought experiment that Bernie Sanders is just lying to us and he doesn't believe any of these things. This is great messaging. You will get a ton of votes behind this person, even if he turns out to be the devil and doesn't believe this stuff.
Right.
And that's what Trump did. He understood that it's more about what you say than what you do.
Yeah, and
what you say gets you elected, and what you do keeps you in power.
And to be fair, I'm not sure Trump even understands that he's like, I don't think Trump's even following a strategy. I think Trump is just being Trump. I think he is he's just spitting garbage out and basically behind the scenes is like, oh my God, is this working? Like, oh, cool. I mean, he looked shocked, you know, in 2016 when he won. Right. And then it all turned around from there. It was kind of like, have you seen the video of Kash Patel basically holding his first press conference as FBI director?
I haven't.
He said, and I quote, well, I'm paraphrasing. It's almost exactly this. I don't remember the exact words, but it was, holy fucking shit, this is wild. Literally to a room full of reporters. Like, can you believe this?
Right.
I mean, anyway, so we took a little detour there. I want to come back really quickly just to wrap up the tariff story. Canada immediately imposed 25% retaliatory tariffs on nearly $30 billion of American imports. And then Ontario ripped up, I think it's $100 million $100 million Starlink deal, and plans to tax electricity in response to the Trump trade war. I mean, this is getting LCBO is removing 3,600 American products from its shelves and warehouses. We already saw, even at the threat of these ridiculous tariffs, that a lot of Canadian grocery stores are proudly displaying "Made in Canada" on their grocery shelves and removing American items.
That's what LCBO is. It's like a big chain of like liquor stores and grocery bodegas and things like that. But I mean, they're not doing nothing. And we told y'all they weren't gonna do nothing. Nobody's gonna take this lying down. And so then, as much as Trump hates it, it's gonna be a trade war. Not him bullying his way into victory. It's going to be a trade war, and it's going to be a slog, and he's not going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it. The Dems aren't going to pay for it. The Republicans and Democrats and independents and everybody else are all going to pay for it.
Trump immediately responded at 12. I don't know if you've seen this yet. At 12:40 p.m. today, from his Truth Social account, with this nonsense.
Governor Trudeau. Oh, interesting.
Please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. So
this is a person who doesn't understand how trade wars work. So he's saying, oh, you didn't like my 25% tariff, so you put a 25% tariff. I'm going to make it a 50% tariff. And he expects it to end there.
I mean,
idiot. Absolute idiot.
First of all, who wants to go to the table with this guy, especially when he starts with, please explain to Governor Trudeau. Like,
right.
What are you
I believe that he is stupid enough to not know his appropriate title.
I mean,
that seems reasonable.
He's making a joke about Canada being the 51st state, right?
Like, oh, you think? I don't think he's that bright. I think he just
because he kept calling Canada the 51st state. Like, I think this is still a riff on that. I mean, he knows it's President Trudeau. He doesn't want anyone else to have that president. He's the only president. I mean, this is a good segue into another president came into the Oval Office on Friday, and that went about as bad as I think anybody has ever seen.
In living memory.
I mean, to go back to the interview with Governor Healy, I think it was her who had asked a historian. She said, I had asked a historian, like, have you ever seen anything like this? Like, is there what do we do? Like, how do we prepare? She's like, this is literally unprecedented times.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just crazy. So let's if you're listening to this, there's no way you haven't heard about this meeting.
You heard this.
But we're gonna play this clip just because it's just insane.
It's very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. Is very...
All right, so... I mean, there's so much going on in this one clip, but there's so much more that happened as well. And I want to call out a couple of things that I think we should talk about. One, at some point, which we don't have the clip, I think right now, at some point, Trump said that this war would be over in 3 days. You know, if...
Oh, yeah.
And
that was...
Zelenskyy responded, yeah, Putin said that. Yeah, I heard it. He said, I heard it from Putin. And the translation there, I don't think a lot of people realize what Zelenskyy is saying is that's Putin's talking point. I've heard Putin say that. You're parroting Putin's talking points to me. And I think that's really important that people understand that.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I think that it's the problem that, man, it's hard to listen to these people when they are trying this bully strategy of I'm just going to talk over you. I don't actually care what you have to say. I'm just going to say stuff now. But man, yeah, this is all Trump. I'm sorry. This is all Putin talking points. Like you said, the 3 days thing was a Putin talking point. It's not in this clip, but he says later he loses his shit and starts yelling about how they're on the verge of World War III.
And he's gambling.
Somehow it's Ukraine's fault.
Yeah.
He's gambling with World War III.
Yeah.
Which again is another Putin talking point. That's something that they throw out there all the time because they're losing the war and they can't really do anything about it. I don't know what to say. He's a Russian agent, and so is JD. I have to say this just really quickly. JD Vance is a little bitch. Just Jesus Christ. Have you said thank you even one time since you got here?
I mean, honestly,
little shit.
I feel like that should be the title of this episode. And I
just want to slap him in his fat mouth. I hate him so much.
First of all, there's audio. If you've listened to the whole thing, there's audio of Zelenskyy coming in and saying thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Thank you, so there's audio of that just in this meeting alone. But then there's a fact check that was like, Zelenskyy has thanked the United States, 33 times. I want to call out something that Vance said that was particularly disturbing to me, that I don't really hear a lot of people talking about in that clip, because his "have you said thank you once" was just so ridiculous that it kind of overshadowed this other thing. But he said, "You campaigned with the opposition." We have gotten to the point in the United States where the Democratic and the Republican parties are seen as bigger enemies than the United States and Russia. I mean, that is basically what Vance is saying there. How dare you? How could you come to the United States and campaign with the opposition, with Democrats, and now you're here asking for money? I mean, that is just wild.
Yeah, it's a really stupid thing to say, because he was here with the president at the time, who was a Democrat.
And by the way, he also met with Trump. He went to Trump Towers and met with Trump.
We all have to remember that the invasion started, the Russian invasion of Ukraine started in 2015. So I mean, this has been going on for the 2 presidencies and then some.
And Trump, by the way, got the dates wrong during this interview, and Zelenskyy had to correct him, because Zelenskyy did say, I think he said 2014 to whatever, and Trump was trying to say, well, here's the bigger picture first. What Zelenskyy is saying here is that I don't think that a peace deal is going to work with Putin, because he broke the peace deal last time. And all he did was use that time, that period of quote unquote peace, to regroup and attack again. And Zelenskyy is saying, listen, if we don't stop this, if you guys don't back this peace deal up with a security guarantee, then Putin is going to do the exact same thing. And Trump said, not you, I'm president.
Not with me.
And he said, dude, you were president from 2016 to 2020. What are you talking about? You know?
He said that there have been 3 ceasefires negotiated with the help of the United States. Trump did it twice, and Trump did it once, and Biden did it twice. And Putin
broke off,
reneged on all 3 of them by just re-rallying and then starting a new offensive. And so when Trump's telling Zelenskyy, you need to accept this peace deal that I'm brokering without your inclusion with Russia, and we're going to have a ceasefire, Zelensky's like, well, that doesn't mean anything. Ceasefires don't mean anything to Russia, so why do I care about that? You can't, if you're not going to back that up with any security guarantees and assurances, with either boots on the ground or money or weapons or ammunition or food or whatever, then what am I getting out of this? Nothing. Why would I even talk to you?
Yeah.
No reason.
Yeah.
That's and it's a perfectly reasonable negotiating question.
Right.
You're offering me nothing except the lies that I've been fed by this person 3 times. Why would I trust that it's going to be any different this time around, when it was no different last time with you or with your predecessor?
And frankly, especially when the person that you're talking to is parroting the talking points of, I mean, literally, guys, I don't know how to make this any clearer. This is, if you thought that it was a Russian conspiracy before, that there were Russian assets within, the Trump administration in 2016, and that Russia was trying to help him, I mean, look no closer than now. The director of national security, of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is parroting Putin talking points on Fox News. She refuses to say anything bad about Putin and their regime and what they've been doing. They refuse to acknowledge that Putin is responsible for killing Ukrainians on the ground in Ukraine. I mean,
they only do Russian talking points, and I'm really wanting to speak here to people who don't believe in this. They call it a Russian hoax or whatever. And I just want to point out that the people in Trump's cabinet that he's appointing, and he himself, are only stating things that are provably, in reality, untrue.
Right.
They're like, Ukraine started the war. Ukraine did not start the war. Russia invaded Crimea and then Ukraine. They took over Crimea first and then invaded Ukraine as a second offensive. They started it. Ukraine has been defending itself and retaliating as a part of that war that has befallen them. Yeah, and it's just talking points like that, and they all come from the Kremlin. This whole idea of, oh, you're playing with World War III, like that might be a real fear that people have, especially if you're, if you're a little bit older, if you're a Cold War kid, you remember like the idea of that. That's terrifying, I'm sure, but those are talking points that scare you out of action. They want you to be isolationist in America because you are the other world power, and if you're not backing up your allies in Europe, no one will.
Right.
And then Russia can take over Europe.
And Tulsi Gabbard especially, I'm just so blown away by her role in this. But she has parroted the talking points or Putin's justification for the invasions, both that Russia had legitimate security concerns, and that there was a U.S.-backed biological research facility in Ukraine, which Moscow had used as the justification, another justification for its invasion, this biolabs conspiracy, right. All of which is nonsense. But Tulsi Gabbard, now the director of national intelligence, has parroted. I mean, I can't, frankly, if I were Zelenskyy, I'd be scared to even travel to the United States at this point. I mean,
I don't think I would do it again.
Yeah, I mean, so he left the United States. He was asked immediately to leave by Marco Rubio and other staff. And
yeah.
He went directly to London. There was an emergency meeting with heads of state in Europe about what they could do to not only help fund Ukraine, because it's looking less and less like the United States is aligning with Europe on its defense of Ukraine, and backing and putting together a security guarantee of their own. I mean, this is just wild times right now. I mean, Trump is aligning with Vladimir Putin and North Korea and China, which is weird because of the retaliatory tariffs that he's dealing with China. He's gonna have no friends by the end of this. I mean, there is.
It's the problem, because the United States' allies have traditionally been democratic states, democratic countries rather, or very similar,
right.
UK's, and he's just alienating all of our allies, right. Alienating our country to all of our allies. Right. And they're all sort of rallying the wagons, they're circling the wagons and hunkering down against this threat of Russia, and I suppose China as well. And they are asking for help. We're not giving it. But I'm with you in the sense that at some point, let's say as an experiment,
okay,
that Ukraine gets the funding and the support and the munitions and whatnot that it needs from the promises of the EU, just holistically, right? And they continue this war for another 3 years, and they're defending their country. That's not a good look for anybody who isn't helping them and is an ally. Like, the US is gonna look very silly at the end of that, right?
I mean, how can we look worse than we do right now?
That's fair.
I mean, by the way, did you realize the State of the Union is tonight?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize that with everything that's been going on.
And the Democrats, because they are cowards, will not walk out and abstain.
Yeah,
they should, but they won't.
They should. Yeah, totally didn't realize that was happening tonight. But this ties in with the conversation we were just having. Okay, I mean, there's a lot more to talk about with Zelenskyy and Trump, and I think, by the way, a lot of what Trump is doing is sort of a retaliation against Zelenskyy personally, because Zelenskyy is the reason Trump was impeached.
Well, Trump is the reason Trump was impeached. It just so happens the crime he committed was against Zelensky.
I'm speaking as in Trump's
Yeah,
mind.
he's upset because he got caught.
Yeah, in
And
Trump's
he
mind,
blames
Zelensky's
for
the
him
reason.
being
Right,
caught. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think
Like
there's
all criminals, he doesn't take any.
Yeah.
He doesn't acknowledge any of his own part in that.
right. So I do think that there's something there. I think there's something there.
Of course, he's
okay.
always been a petty person. I mean, everything that we've ever covered on Trump just illustrates just how petty he is about every little thing.
Yeah.
And whenever he feels snubbed by anything, he lashes out, 100-fold against it. And I think you're right. I think that this is him just being like, you're never going to win this war with Russia without our assistance, and I'm never going to give it to you.
Right.
And I want you to come here and get on TV and feel bad in front of me because that's going to make me feel better. Zelenskyy had to know he wasn't going to get any support from this administration. I think the only reason to do it is to try and make, to come out here and make his case in front of the American people and being like, we're in a war, we didn't start it, and we got to defend ourselves. And then Trump's just going to be like, you're corrupt, and he looks like an idiot the whole time.
Well, speaking
and then
of
JD
idiots,
outdoes him, and JD proves who the big idiot is.
I mean,
good job.
I mean, I will say that at least I am not worried about JD Vance taking over the Republican Party when Trump is all said and done, because Jesus, I just don't think his level of charisma, this is weird to say, isn't on the same level as Trump. I mean, for most of us, Trump is repulsive, right? But
yeah,
there's something really icky about JD Vance that I think even the people that support his type of politics feel. Yeah. Which is weird to say.
We've said it before, like Trump has a sense of the grandiose about him. He's big and he's boisterous and he says stuff and he's confident about it, and he has that magnanimousness. I don't have that word. And JD just comes out there and he looks like just a flaccid dick. He just doesn't have anything.
Man, you are giving me some great title ideas for today's episode. JD Vance looks like a flaccid dick.
He does. Look at him. Jesus Christ. If you haven't, do yourself a hate favor. If you hate yourself enough, go and look at JD Vance's picture after he's clean shaven. He looks like an uncircumcised penis, and I can't with him. Give me a new story. I want a new story.
Have you said thank you once during this podcast?
Since we started this podcast?
Have you said thank you one time? Okay, here's a fun one that you actually shared with me.
Dear viewer. Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, that's a good place to say that. Please like and subscribe.
Thank you.
To amend HR 1761, to amend the Federal Reserve Act to require the Secretary of the Treasury to print $250 Federal Reserve notes featuring a portrait of Donald J. Trump and for other purposes. So, Rep Joe Wilson is clearly kissing some ass here, right? I mean, what is this? Is this dear leader crap? This is so confusing.
North Korea nonsense.
Yeah, this is so confusing to me. From the party that is always trying to scare you with communism and socialism and they're the guys that walk around with Trump pins and Trump, this and Trump hats and the red hats are everywhere. I mean, what? And now, we gotta get him while he's still here, while he's still president. We gotta get him on our money. He's the king. Long live the king. What the hell is going on?
I don't know. I think you're right. It's just the dear leader nonsense. Luckily, this only has 3 co-sponsors at the moment. It's not going to do anything. It's never going to come to a floor vote. Because people, maybe it will. I wouldn't expect it to, but we live in weird times.
Yeah, it was referred to the House Committee on Financial Services, which the House Committee on Financial Services will have one extra Republican, I believe, on it than Democrats. So we'll see. I mean, right now, are you going to be the Republican that spits in the face of Donald Trump? You know, are you going to say no to your dear leader, Donald Trump? I mean, none of them are.
It is interesting because in years past, the way that you would have handled this or something like this is you would have said, you'd have parried it out a bunch on the news. You'd be all over Fox News being like, we're going to make a $250 bill. And then you'd talk to your buddies in Congress, be like, we're not bringing it to a vote. We're just not going to do it. And then time would pass and, grandpa would forget. Yeah.
So one of the co-sponsors here is basically right in my area.
In your district, I know.
He's almost, he represents me. This is, God damn.
You can write him. You can write him and be like, or call him up and be like,
here it is.
I don't think.
Guys, here's Daryl Issa's phone number, 202-225-5672. Tell him what you think he should do with a $250 bill. I can think of a couple of things. He can roll it up and...
Here's the thing. I don't think anybody cares about this.
No, nobody cares about it. We don't really care about it.
How often do you walk around with hundreds in your pocket? Like, that's a bill that exists. You walk around with 100 in your pocket at any point in your life.
It's got to go directly into the
supermarket.
ATM.
And you're like, yeah, no, exactly. You're gonna can anybody break this for 20s? Something with a bill I can do something with?
Yeah.
$250 bill is just a waste of. If you want to talk about waste and inefficiency, this is a waste and inefficiency. There's no need unless you're going to print 5 of these and Trump gets to keep them. Like, there's no point. It's a waste of our taxpayer money.
Right.
Nobody's ever going to see these.
Yeah.
The money you recoup from your pennies, like 4 times that's going to have to cover this.
Right.
Such a stupid bill.
I want to get away with not talking about Elon Musk really for this entire episode. So
for one episode,
I don't want to talk about him. So I want to talk about there are 2 things that we wanted to talk about. I'm not going to play the Gaza video.
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you haven't seen the Gaza video with Trump and Netanyahu with their nips out in front of the Trump Gaza hotel. What do you?
Oh, we live in such stupid times. The AI is a problem. I wasn't expecting. I don't know why I wasn't expecting, but I wasn't expecting the president of the United States to be doing his own propaganda videos. A and B, so poorly. Just it's AI slop. It's garbage.
It's slop.
It looks ugly.
Yeah. I mean, it's terribly
it's one step beyond 10 or 15 fingers on each hand. It's barely passable.
But the message in it is just unbelievable.
The message is we approved of this genocide because I get to put a hotel there.
Right.
I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah.
We eradicated these people, these human beings who lived here. We killed them all.
Right.
So that I could have a hotel. That's the messaging. There's no other messaging. It's not, safety. No, you wanted to put up a hotel. And, and your video completely confirms that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
So I want to end today's episode on our, the final topic of the day with what's going on with the measles. Measles. I know you're all excited. You said, boy, I hope they talk about this disease that was eradicated in the United States in the 2000s.
2005.
So thankfully there's probably not much to talk about, except if you don't know, last week a child was the first child in, I think, 10 years to die of the measles, unvaccinated, and was the first to die of the measles in 10 years. In 2024, we saw 285 measles cases reported in the United States, and it was the highest number in 5 years. And that number is growing, and already, I think what does this say? As of February 27, there are already a total of 164. We now have confirmed outbreaks in, that one that started in Texas where that child was killed. The obvious reason these outbreaks are happening more often is because of the declining vaccination rates. 95% of the cases so far in 2025 are linked to being unvaccinated or unknown vaccination status, which is usually unvaccinated. I don't know what to say about this other than like I'm almost at the point now where I would be considered a borderline communist if I'm like, start taking these kids away from these parents, right?
Yeah.
Like take them away, because you're killing your kids.
You're doing worse than that, and I think that that's an important thing to remember here, is that whether you liked it or not, and whether you agreed with it or not, COVID happened. COVID was a real thing, and it affected the world. And COVID had, and we believed at the time, around a 1.2 R naught value. The R naught value of a virus basically says how communicable it is, give or take. If it's less than 1, it means it'll die out on its own generally. So like it won't spread as, like, you won't spread equally or more than a 1 to 1
the number of
ratio,
people
right?
that you interact with. Exactly.
Right. And so if it's less than 1, you really don't have to worry about it a ton because it will just die out over time. If it's equal to 1, that means that you will infect the same number of people who get it initially. So you're contracting it. Like, I get it, I give it to Nate. Nate gives it to his wife gives it to somebody. It doesn't spread out that way. So you need to do something at some point. You need to like quarantine people to get them.
One of those people need to just, exactly.
Yeah. And okay, we thought it was like a 1.2 to 1.4. It ended up being like a 0.8, which is pretty close. It's still spreading pretty badly. And I think that number actually reflects after like a certain amount of the population was inoculated after that whole thing.
Right.
Measles.
Okay. Give me the
R naught of measles. The R naught of measles is between 12 and 18, depending on which variant it is. When you get it, you spread it to like 20 people because that's just how infective it is. And like COVID, it had a huge incubation period of almost 2 weeks where you're asymptomatic for that amount of time. So you don't have a cough, you don't have hives or any of the stuff that comes with measles. But when you breathe in or cough, you sneeze, you're infecting other people. That's why its R naught is so high, is because people don't know that they're sick yet. And by the time that these things start breaking out, everyone already has it. So when it says 164 cases, that is not 1 week ago. And that could mean that there are so many more people infected who don't have symptoms yet.
Let's say that again. The R naught of 12 to 18 means that one person being infected will likely infect on average as many as 18 other people. So with 164 confirmed cases, and as of February 27th, I'm sure there might be a new number that's out already now. I just remember COVID starting and telling my wife, I think this is going to be a problem. I think this is going to be a big deal. And not, a week, 2 weeks later, we were on lockdown. And measles is going to be a problem. And it's going to take out a lot of children that are unvaccinated.
It's going to take out a lot of children and a lot of the elderly who didn't get the measles vaccine during the 80s and 90s when it became more prolific amongst children. You're going to have people like our parents' age are not vaccinated against measles, most likely. And some of them had it, luckily, and they survived it.
Yeah.
And now they're basically immune to it. But a lot of them didn't. It's sort of like chickenpox. I know people who aren't vaccinated to chickenpox and also didn't have it. It's sort of the same thing. I mean, we're too old for the chickenpox vaccine. I had chickenpox when I was
chickenpox when I was a kid too.
So but I mean, Most people don't die of chickenpox.
Yeah.
So.
Measles, on the other hand, when you get that, you get that rash. I mean, the rash is because the virus is in your blood, okay, and spreading to your lungs. It's going to
everywhere.
cause this type of large cell pneumonia that is likely going to kill you. Okay, so I think the number was. Let me see if I can find the number here. I just had it in my gruesome notes. That the hospitalization rate so far in the United States, this is high. 25% of all measles cases in the United States in 2025 has required hospitalization. Okay, that is an insane number. 1 in 4 of those people, of the 164 so far that we know of, have required hospitalization. I mean, first of all, guys, we still have COVID out there. We still have the flu out there. Now we have the measles out there. Hospitals are going to be overrun again. If this isn't stopped, okay, hospitals are going to be overrun. We're looking at we have RFK Jr. already canceling meetings with the I forget what the organization is that determines what the next flu vaccine, the makeup of the flu vaccine is going to look like. They're the people that they look at a world map and they predict what strains are traveling where, and they decide what certain concoction makeup the flu vaccine is going to look like. But they have to start that planning basically now in order to have it ready for next season. Flu season. Yeah. That is already gone, guys. There's a chance that if they even roll out a flu vaccine, because RFK has said that maybe they might take it in-house, they don't know what they're going to do. If they even roll out a flu vaccine, it's likely going to be entirely useless. But they might not even be
effective. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's February. No, it's not. It's March right now, and we don't know what that'll look like in 8 months. But yeah, it's right now is when you start looking at what the flu did here, because we're basically coming out of flu season now. But also we're looking at where it's going next, right? Because it's going to be moving toward winter in the southern hemisphere as the next couple of months becomes. Everybody understands that. And we need to follow the flu as it travels the world and see how it mutates. We need to know as a response to predict what will happen when we see it in Australia, when we see it in, we're like, okay, it's going to come back this way and it's going to, we're not doing that. There's not going to be a vaccine.
So I want to remind
people. Or it'll be an ineffective one, like you said.
I want to remind people of something. I'm going to show Bernie Sanders one more time. Okay, I'm sorry if listen, you guys are not Bernie Sanders fans.
Even our enemies like Bernie.
That's fine. Just bear with me for a second, because Bernie's face in this image that I'm about to share is my face constantly right now. Okay, look at his face.
Is the vein popping out of your? Yeah.
Look at his face. Are you out of your minds? But I want to remind people of something that Bernie showed.
Face, everybody. That is Nate's face every single time.
You were with me yesterday. You were with me yesterday.
Yeah.
I want to remind people of the something that happened during RFK's confirmation hearing. That Senator Bernie Sanders brought large billboards of clothes for babies, as he called them. He was trying to explain what onesies are. RFK was selling onesies. And for the listeners at home, the one onesie on the left says "unvaxxed, unafraid," and the other onesie says "no vax, no problem." These are onesies for clothes for babies, as Bernie Sanders said, that are basically saying my child is unvaccinated. This is a parent would be buying this for their kid and saying my kid don't need no vaccine.
Do you think that they're gonna bury their kids in those, or
Jesus Christ, man? I wouldn't have gone that far.
I mean, I will say this is just the optimist in me, and it's going to be my downfall.
Boy,
but we've seen a lot of people, particularly out of Texas in this measles outbreak, people who are directly affected. Their kids are sick. They're being hospitalized. and they're basically saying, we were wrong. They're coming out and saying, I didn't know it would be this bad. I didn't think it was realistic to say that this could happen to us, and blah, blah, blah. And then they would say things like, why are they telling us that, that it's no big deal when it clearly is? Our child is hospitalized. Why are these grifters telling it? They didn't say grifters. Why are these elected officials telling us, just don't get the vaccine? It's not a big deal. If you get sick, you'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And they're seeing it firsthand and they're understanding now.
But this is but it's too late. This is exactly what happened
with
COVID.
Late.
The people, but literally, guys, this isn't fake. This is real news.
You don't want this, so we're clear.
People were on respirators, okay, dying with their dying breaths, saying, I wish I had gotten the vaccine. I mean, that really happened. Family members telling stories of their loved ones passing. I remember the story of a husband dying, saying this to his wife, telling his wife to go get vaccinated as he was dying. I mean, guys, if you're this deep into our show, it's likely you're vaccinated, your kids are vaccinated, whatever. But if this somehow reaches,
well done,
guys, if this somehow reaches you and you're one of these people who are anti-vax, or you're do your own research crowd, well, first of all, let me just say RFK Jr. has even come out and backed the measles vaccine now. He's had to say it because people are dying. I mean, I would love to see anti-vaxxers being held liable for what's happening, for these deaths.
Right.
I would love that. I want to see, the spread of disinformation, purposeful misinformation, being held accountable. If it's not going to be at the level of, these platforms don't have a right, it's free speech or whatever, fine. I want to see somebody taken to court and somebody, this had a direct effect on me and my willingness to vaccinate my children, and my child died, and I believed in this person because this is my representative, this is a person in power, this is a person that told me I shouldn't vaccinate my children.
Yeah, if there's no repercussions, then there will be no change.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing, is that so much of this that I have seen is from people who are obvious grifters to me. I think that they're obvious. They're telling you don't get the vaccine. They don't want to tell you this one weird trick, and it's something they sell.
It's their supplement. It's their supplement.
It's their supplement or whatever, and it's healthier for kids. It's all natural and blah blah blah. And people are scared. People are dumb, but they're scared, so they don't want their kids to have problems, so they don't get them vaccines in the hopes that everything will just work out. But it's like, I have to put your faith in these snake oil salesmen over scientific studies performed by thousands and thousands of people who want nothing better than to improve the lives of your children. And
I have to tell this.
Trust them. You believe the guy selling the snake oil.
I have to tell this one anecdote, and I'm not going to say who the family member is, but this is a true story. My daughter, I will say this part. My daughter has lupus, and she was hospitalized. She was intubated. She was, it was very, very bad. And it was honestly, she was on her deathbed. She's so much better now. It was a miracle. There were some incredible doctors at Tufts Children's Hospital. But when one of my family members, who I used to be pretty close with, heard the news, and knew what the disease was, she sent me a link to a random doctor in, a doctor that had been basically, I don't know what the term is for doctors who are like lawyers who are disbarred, basically, right?
Yeah.
And lost his license or whatever.
Right.
But this doctor was now selling basically a vitamin D supplement. I mean, that's really all it was. I looked at the thing, and it was she should just eat better and take these, and that'll answer her, solve her autoimmune disease. And there are people out there. My point of this is that there are people out there who believe these grifters. They take them on their word because they're so convincing. They have either, whether it's great marketing materials or just a great marketing strategy, or a way to really get into people's heads. a large amount of people, intelligent people too. This family member is a fairly intelligent person, at least I thought, believe these lies that, oh, well, if she, if it wasn't for the plastic in the water, maybe this person wouldn't have gotten pancreatic cancer. Maybe, and if it wasn't for the magnets in the vaccine, maybe this person wouldn't have died. So I don't know how we stop this. I think I've said this before about the way that our parties are right now in the United States, the way that we're fighting each other. I do not see this getting any better, and I don't know how to fix it.
Right.
I just don't know.
Yeah, the answer is education, but we didn't talk about who was nominated for the head of education.
We don't even have time to talk about. I mean, by the time our next episode comes around, we will have dismantled the Department of
yeah,
Education.
that'll be gone.
Okay.
Get your vaccines, folks. Just get your vaccines. Listen to the doctors, and then like and subscribe and leave a comment.
Guys, I don't care if you don't comment or sub or like the channel if you're going to get your vaccine instead. Just do that instead. Do both. But do both. Yeah. But I'd rather you just go get vaccinated. Okay.
Well, we don't need the likes and subscribes. Those just make us feel good.
Yeah.
The vaccines that should make you feel good. So
please,
go do that.
Please. But back to I think what you were alluding to before is just before we wrap. It's not these people who are refusing to get their kids vaccinated while seeing other kids die are not just hurting their own kids, but they're going to hurt others, especially with measles.
They're going to hurt a bunch of people. Yeah.
You're going to hurt other people. So please get vaccinated. That's all the time that we have for today. I'm Nate Brady.
I'm Mike Smith.
Thanks for
joining us.
This is the
Blue Sedition Podcast. Thanks for joining.
We'll catch you next time.